Hello, good morning everybody. Good morning and a very warm welcome to season 2 of our live chat session. Yes, another live chat session by Outdoor Wilderness and Learning, OWL in short. So we are coming to you from Mumbai currently, and we have our fabulous speaker who will be live from some other place, and you will find out very soon. By the way, OWL is an initiative of the Wanderers in the Learning and Development space, and we specialize in training and workshops, and we partnered with highly experienced trainers and facilitators to help corporates create winning teams. And today we have with us a person who is an extraordinary person who has spent more days navigating the seas than spending time on land. And I will very soon introduce you to that person. A person who is the first Indian and the second Asian to have circumnavigated solo in a sailing yacht, which is, I'm really sorry, I could hear a sound. Yeah, that's better. I was going crazy. Thank you so much. Sorry. So today we have it as a person who is the first Indian and the second Asian and 79th in the world to perform a successful solo and non-stop circumnavigation of the globe under sail. He was alone for 151 days and completed the voyage without touching any port and used only wind power. And hold your breath, he was back again as the only Asian entrant in the 2018 edition of the solo non-stop voyage around the world called the Golden Globe Race. After 82 days in the harsh and marine environment, he was in the third position when his boat was hit by a vicious storm in the South Indian Ocean, dismasting the boat and inflicting severe injury to his spine. Yes, and when he was rescued after a dramatic multinational rescue effort, which was really one of its kind, and so many of us were worried about him. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce our next speaker, the young, handsome, ever smiling, and powerful Commander Abhilash Tomy. He's won a lot of accolades, Kirti Chakra, Nausena Medal, and he's a doctor of philosophy. And the list is endless. Good morning, Abhilash. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here with you today. It's just like the old times as I'm meeting you again after so many days.
And we're meeting virtually for now. That's great. And very soon. So, where are you now? Where are you based now?
Goa, the place to be.
Fabulous place in Goa. Well, we are locked up in Mumbai and various other cities. So, very lucky to be in Goa. Yeah. So, it's really been a great journey. We've known each other since so many years. In fact, not many viewers would be aware that Abhilash is also a pilot. What do you have to say about it, Abhilash? Isn't it true?
Yes, I think that's a little known aspect of my life. Um, in the Navy, you have to choose a specialization as an executive officer. And I volunteered for the flying branch. I did my training with the Air Force for 1 year, and there was a small incident that happened at the Air Force. I was accused of stealing a plane. Very few people know about it. I went on an unauthorized sortie, and they almost threw me out. But well, I believe somebody must have seen some potential in me and said, let him fly. We will not kick him out. I trained on multi-engines in Bangalore with the Air Force. I've flown multi-engine reconnaissance aircrafts in 2 operational squadrons in the Navy. And besides that, I've flown motor gliders, microlights in Slovenia, Italy, Kanpur, a lot of places. I am a pilot as well.
This was superb. So it's like a pilot come sailor. I mean, brilliant. I mean, I wasn't aware that you had really, flown in such various countries and under different environment. This is something amazing, outstanding. But, when did you really first think of circumnavigating the world in a sailboat or becoming a pilot? Did it happen in your teenage years, or how did you really come to go about?
I think the ages between 5 to 7 was very crucial for me because it shaped these 2 aspects of my life. There was this circumnavigation of the earth, which was done by a group of army officers who went around the world in a boat called the Trishna. Included Major A.K. Singh, who was a amputee, and he skippered the boat. This was broadcast on Doordarshan as a series, as a documentary series, and that really influenced my life at that time. And I thought when I grow up, I should become a sailor. That was also the time when an aircraft from my father's base met with an accident, and a young lieutenant called Simon Pinemutel died in the crash. And this was huge news in Kerala at that time. My mother used to read out the news to me, and it's ironic, but the death of a pilot inspired me to become a pilot when I grew up. It was because of these 2 reasons that I decided to join the Navy, because I realized there is no other institution in the country that will let you sail and fly at the same time. In '99, when I was a cadet in the Naval Academy, I came to know about a race called Around Alone. And in that race, people were sailing single-handed, racing around the world. And it was a woman called Isabel Autissier who was leading all the way in every leg. And I found that to be something incredible. What I realized is that the sea does not know if you're a man or a woman. The sea only knows your capabilities. And this, again, was something very inspirational for me. And that's when I decided that I'm going to buy a boat when I retire from the Navy. I started saving almost 8,000 rupees from my 8,500 rupees salary, thinking that I will have enough to buy a boat when I retire at the age of 42. But this dream that started in '99, started realizing when in 2009 I was made shore support for Commander Dilip Donde, who was sailing around the world. And in another couple of years, the Navy asked me if I wanted to do my own circumnavigation.
Oh, wow. This is something really exceptional, I would say. I mean, it's just a dream which really started off when you heard about that pilot, and that led you on to achieve this magnificent feat, which to a common man seems almost impossible. I mean, we hear about people climbing Mount Everest, and thousands of people have really climbed Mount Everest. So, I mean, going solo in only a wind-powered sailboat, not touching a single port and being alone. I mean, how did you manage to remain sane for those 151 days being solo?
First, the biggest reason why or how I managed to remain sane was the fact that I volunteered. Nobody was forcing me to, take a boat and sail around the world. Besides that, the naval training, which is exceptional, it really puts you through a lot of exceptional circumstances, makes 5 months solitary sailing around the world look very ordinary. Trust me, I have later on when I had the accident and I compared that moment when I was lying in the boat with a fractured spine, I compared that to my Naval Academy training. And I preferred to be on a boat with a fractured spine in the middle of the South Indian Ocean than go back and attend 1 day's training in the academy. So yeah, the Navy puts you through a series of exceptional circumstances during the training. It teaches you how to take risk. It teaches you how to manage risk. And I think all these things really contributed to the success of my first circumnavigation.
Wow, this is really, really stunning. Yes, I know the Navy is such a magnificent institution, and it's completely responsible for so many great heroes. And what you've achieved today is all thanks to the collaborative effort of the Indian Navy. Really, really hats off to them and to you. And in fact, so when was this journey? It was in 2013, was it? I mean, that you did the, yeah.
I started on the 1st of November 2012. Spent 5 months at sea, exactly 150 days and 7 hours, and I was back on the 31st of March 2013.
Yeah, I mean, stunning. So it was like 151 days, completely at
Yes,
sea.
151 days, and that's the title of my book. 6 days later, on the 6th of April, I got the biggest honor and the biggest surprise, biggest shock of my life when the Honorable President of India gave me a ceremonial reception at the gateway. So I was actually back on the 31st of March, but on the 6th of April, I was told to take my boat, get out of Bombay Harbor, and I came back after spending 12 hours just roaming around south of Bombay doing nothing. I saw there were 3 helicopters that were giving me a flight past. And when I put my boat alongside of the gateway and I was climbing up, the steps as part of the ceremony, I saw that the President of India was himself there to receive me. And later I came to know that he also was on one of the aircrafts and he was giving me a fly past when I was making my approach to the gateway. Many years later, I realized that this honor has not been given to any human other than, the skipper of this expedition. Receptions by the Honorable President are given at Rashtrapati Bhavan only, and this was probably the only time he gave a reception outside the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Simply amazing. Wow, the great man that Pranab Kumar Mukherjee was, and so humble. He actually came down to the gateway of India to receive you. And You were not even aware when you were enacting that, journey back on the 6th of April to Gateway of India.
Well,
In
I
fact,
kind of, but when you actually, walk up the steps and meet the president, that's when it hits you that, he actually has come down.
and your best-selling book, The Voyage 151, also carries a foreword from him, right?
Yes, he was
Yeah.
kind enough to give a foreword for the book. And I think it was a kind of subtle acknowledgement of the feat that the Navy had achieved. In fact, in his speech at the Gateway, he mentioned that this puts us amongst a rare club of nations. And I'm very sure that he was very proud of the fact that the Navy went ahead and did this expedition. And when I wanted a forward and I put in a word to his office, he was gracious and more than willing to, give that. Yeah, so big things.
And so, what is the first, what is a moment that comes to your mind first from this voyage, And I mean, for a common mind like us, I would think 115 days alone. Did you ever fear not completing the voyage? Did you ever miss meeting a fellow human being and not setting foot on land for 151 days? Is like an decade on the sea for a common man who has never set foot on sea alone.
Well, surprising as it may seem, I never really focused on the destination. That's something that I had to train myself to do. Because every time I focus on the destination, I was also focusing on the comforts of the land. Sailing per se is a very uncomfortable sport, long distance sailing. The boat is always wet. The bunk is wet. Your clothes are wet. You're sleeping, on a wet bunk with water leaking onto your eyes. Either it's too hot and you're sweating, or it's too cold and you're shivering. And I'm talking about 40 degrees or 0 degrees. So that's a temperature variation. The storms can be really bad. You've got 10, 15-meter high waves, 70-knot winds, and at least two of these storms hit you every week in the Southern Ocean. Every moment you're wondering whether you will live or not to see the next day. And if in these circumstances you start focusing on the destination, you start thinking of comfortable hotel rooms and toilets and good food and all that. And that can really be a problem. So when I did this expedition, one thing that I promised myself was that I will definitely 100% not look at the destination. I wanted to be in the moment. I wanted to focus on the present. I wanted to focus on the journey. And that's exactly what I did in those 5 months. So, and by extension, I really didn't miss meeting people. I really didn't miss talking to people. I didn't miss the comforts of land. And I became so comfortable in the boat that by the end of the voyage, I was slightly depressed because the journey was coming to an end and I was leaving the boat and I'll have to resume a normal life where I had to interact with people. I had to answer questions. I had to give orders. I had to, do a lot of these things. The sea gave me a kind of freedom that I really don't experience on land, and that's what I most value about the sea.
I mean, this is something, what a experience, I mean, to people like us and to the viewers who are really non-sailors. I mean, this comes as what a learning. I mean, what an experience that you've had. And I mean, and you missed your boat when you were on land. I think it was called Mahde, right? Mahde.
Yes, her name was
Yeah,
Madhi.
Mahde. Yeah. Oh, what a powerful name too. And I remember reading about it and then seeing and then listening to it that there was a very proud Indian moment during that voyage of yours, where our Indian national anthem featuring a record-breaking hoist of the national flag at, I think, was it at Cape Horn on the Republic Day was played. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, how was that possible? I mean, you actually it must have been extremely windy and tough conditions that day.
Yes, Cape Horn holds a very special place for sailors. It is the most difficult cape to round. And if you round Cape Horn, you get two privileges. One is you're allowed to wear a gold earring on the ear that faced Cape Horn when you rounded it. The second privilege that you get is that you're allowed to keep one foot on the dining table. So I've got both these privileges. I believe people don't mind if I wear a gold earring on my ear, but I think they do mind if I keep my foot on the dining table, and I don't get too many invitations these days. But thing is, it is the most important cape to round, and it's not about rounding the cape, but the fact that you've made a 10,000-mile journey from India right up to that cape, and to round it. Now, when you're doing a single-handed non-stop circumnavigation, the first Indian to do it, I obviously wanted to round this most important cape on a day that is important to me personally as well as to the country. When I did my ETA calculations, even by the best estimates, I was certain that I would round Cape Horn only in the first week of February. But when I got into the Pacific, I pushed the boat really, really hard, took every little bit of wind I could find, and I made it to Cape Horn on the 26th of January, 2013, which was obviously a Republic Day. And that day, 10,000 miles away from home, I hoisted the national flag on the boat. And you really don't know what I was feeling that day. The farthest national flag to be hoisted from mainland India. The weather was pretty bad. The sea was like very gray. The sky was gray. It was really bleak. And in the backdrop of that, when you see the tricolor flutter, you have no idea how proud I felt. And when I took a picture of that and put it on Facebook, somebody wrote as a comment that it reminded her of the words of the national anthem, Uchchala Jaladhi Taranga, which is chanted by the waves of the oceans. Now, that day also was important to me personally. It was my parents' wedding anniversary, and I made my first phone call in 86 days using the satellite phone. I called them and I congratulated them on their wedding anniversary. So yeah, it was a day that was important to me personally, as well as to the country. And I think that's one of the achievements that I'm very, very proud and happy about.
I mean, I read about how you hoisting the national flag at Cape Horn on Republic Day in 2013. It was played in 3,000 plus cinemas and 455 TV channels all over the country during the
and it played in a lot of cinema theaters in Maharashtra and all over the country. It was something very beautiful. It's available on YouTube. If somebody wants to go and check it out, it's there on my YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Yeah. We are so proud of you. I mean, and proud of our country. Thank you so much. You know what? This hell and back. I'll go back to the time when we both met a few months before your Golden Globe race, and I heard from you that you were going for this Golden Globe race. And you said it's extremely tough, that you have to build a boat that is in the 1960s era. You were only allowed a sextant and no other means of communication apart from an emergency communication. I mean, to a layman like me, that was something, I said, oh my God, it can't get crazier than this. Here you were, had circumnavigated the globe in 2013, and now I think it was 2018, when you were again wanting to participate in the Golden Globe race, and you were the only Asian invitee. Just tell us more about it and what really happened. I mean, we are also eager to know about this particular journey of yours.
Right. So the history of the Golden Globe race goes back to 1967, when Sir Francis Chichester sailed around the world with just one stop. And that led to a race called the Golden Globe race. And this race wanted to, felicitate the first human to undertake a single-handed, non-stop, unassisted circumnavigation. Now, what does a single-handed, non-stop, unassisted circumnavigation mean? You take your boat from any port sail around the world at least 40,000 kilometers, sail south of the three great capes, which is Cape Horn, Cape of Good Hope, and Cape Leuven, and come back to the point where you started from without stopping anywhere and without taking anybody's help. No help, as in absolutely no help. You borrow a ballpoint pen from a passing ship, your voyage is disqualified. No stops, meaning no stops. You drop anchor, you go into a port, do anything like that, your voyage is disqualified. 9 men attempted the Golden Globe race of 1968, and out of those 9, one sailor allegedly committed suicide because he couldn't take the harshness of the race. Another sailor who was finishing the race, he was leading the race, his boat sank, he was rescued. 3 years later, he committed suicide. A third sailor went around the world and found no point in coming back to civilization. So he went around the world a second time and he settled down in Tahiti, and he never came back to civilization. And out of the rest of the competitors, none of them even managed to cross the Atlantic. They couldn't get out of the Atlantic. It was so tough for them. The only person who finished was Sir Robin Knox Johnston, who sailed around the world in a boat which was built in India. So that's a fact that we must remember. The first boat to undertake a single-handed non-stop circumnavigation was built in India, in Mumbai, in Colaba. And I think we all should be proud of that fact. So Robin finished his voyage and he took 312 days. And that led to a slew of around the world races such as the Whitbread, the Vendée Globe, and all that. Now, fast forward to 2018. It is 50 years since Robin embarked on his historic voyage, and they decided to have the race once again to commemorate Robin's circumnavigation. That's how the Golden Globe race of 2018 was born. And in GGR 2018, as it was known, they completely changed the paradigm of racing sailing. No new technology, right? Small boats, classic designs. They had to be long keel with hinged rudders, and no new materials such as carbon fiber, no new electronics such as GPS. Nothing can be used. If it did not exist in 1968, you could not take that with you. So, a lot of times you have some doubt and you ask them, can I? And the answer is a no. And you tell them, but I've not even asked you this question, asked you what I want to take with me. And they say, it is still a no. If it is there in the list, you can take it. Otherwise, don't even bother asking. So the thing is, we were expected to race around the world in these classic boats using technology of 1968, which means no GPS, no electronic charts, no iPods, no CD players, no satellite communication, no talking to your family, no nothing. It was back to the basics of sailing. What we could take were sextants for navigation with wind-up clocks, and sextant has to be used in conjunction with a clock. If your clock is off by 1 second, your calculated position can go off by 1 mile, which is almost 2 kilometers. If your clock is off by 60 seconds, 1 minute, your position can be 100 kilometers off. That's the kind of accuracy you get if you're not particular. You can use a handled compass, magnetic compass. You can use a taffrail log, things I've not even heard of in my entire naval career, because, by the time I joined the Navy, a taffrail log had just ceased to be in existence. But it was fun. I built a replica of Robin's boat in India, shipped it to the Netherlands, finished work on the boat, sailed her from the Netherlands, crossed the North Sea, sailed along the west coast of England, reached Falmouth, had a few days of activities there. From there, I sailed alone to France, spent a couple of weeks getting the boat completely checked by the race organizers, and I started and went for the race. It was a huge effort. Needed a lot of money, a lot of time, lot of effort, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of preparation to get there.
And then when the race actually started, it started off from France, was it? The Golden Globe
Yeah,
race?
it started from France, from a port called Le Sable d'Olonne.
And I mean, what really happened during that? We have read about the raging storm and so many things. I would really want you to really articulate, what really happened. And you were actually at the third position. I guess 80 plus days.
Yeah, so we were 18 of us who started the race. And as soon as the race started, I went out to sleep because the years of preparation was finally taking its toll. And I was so tired. I wanted to, recover get some sleep and recover some health and get some mental balance and then do the race. So my start was a bit slow. I crossed the first gate in Canaries in 10th position, but that's when I came to know that four of the entrants were already retiring, and one of them retired because he could not take the solitude of the race. We crossed Canaries, and yeah, a couple of days later, something very interesting happened. I got a call from the race organizers. I got a message from them saying that you need to speak to your wife immediately, and you're not allowed to speak on the satellite phone to anybody except the race organizers. And if they asked me to call my wife, um, I thought there was something very, very something that was drastically going wrong back at home, and maybe I'll have to cut short my voyage. So I called up my wife, and she appeared very calm, and she kept speaking for 5 minutes. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. If there is no urgency, why was I asked to call my wife? And I was like, I hope I don't get disqualified for speaking to her for no reason. And then finally I asked her, what's the matter? Why did you ask them to send this message? Why did you want me to speak to you? And my wife is like, you didn't understand a single word of what I was talking for the last 5 minutes. I said, no, what do you want to tell me? And she's like, you're going to become a father. And I was like, what? It's like, what? I just started this voyage. It's been just 12 or 13 days at sea, and I get this news. I'm alone. I've got nobody to share this news with except maybe a couple of flying fish in the water, and some clouds and whatever. And I was like, you give me 5 minutes, I'll call you back. I disconnected the call. I tried to internalize this new development, and I weighed all the options. Should I cut short and go back home? Should I, do what? How will my wife manage, and all those things? Well, I called her back, and I said it's a very happy news, and I couldn't have had I wouldn't, this is the biggest, most happiest news of my life ever. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to come back? She said, no, I don't want you to come back. You please go ahead with the race peacefully. I will manage everything on my own, and you don't even have to think about it. Don't get worried about all these things. I was like, what a strong woman she is. And that was the end of the conversation. But now I had to sail fast. Till now, I was like, I'm spending so much money to be out at sea. Let me, make the full use of all the effort and money I spend. I'll take as long as I can, and I'll enjoy the sea, solitude, and come back when I can and all that. But with this news, yes, there was an urgent requirement to finish it quickly and come back home. So I started pushing the boat. I made some decisions which really helped. While the rest of the fleet was heading straight for Cape Town, which is Cape of Good Hope, which is the next checkpoint, I headed in the opposite direction. I went towards the coast of Brazil. And I still remember when I came back, people were asking, why did you do that back home in India when, they really couldn't understand what I was trying to do. I headed towards the coast of Brazil. And my race was getting longer because I was going in the opposite direction. But it was like putting money in the bank, because I was skirting the St. Helena High in the South Atlantic. All those who headed straight for Cape of Good Hope got stuck in this high pressure zone without winds, but I managed to skirt this high pressure zone. Although initially I slipped from 10th to 13th or probably 14th, I made huge gains later on. And when I was rounding Cape of Good Hope, I had pulled up to 5th position. In the Indian Ocean, I still remember in the first day in the Indian Ocean, I sent a tweet to everybody saying that I'm in the backyard of the Indian Navy. I was very confident that I would do well in this leg. I overtook two more competitors, landed up in third position, but that's when this huge storm hit us. We were exactly between Australia and South Africa, dead south of India, almost 6,000 kilometers from India. If you look at the distance and draw a line of 7,000 kilometers from India towards the west, the line will end in Italy. That's how far I was from India. Or if you draw it northwards, you land in Russia. So I was as far away from India as Russia or Italy is. The nearest land was land as in civilization, human settlement. Any meaningful settlement was 4,000 kilometers away. That's where three of us were hit by a very vicious storm. My boat suffered a knockdown. I was separated from the boat, and I caught the mizzen mast to stay attached to the boat. The boat went upside down, and when it flipped straight up, I was on top of that 9-meter mast, and I fell 9 meters onto an aluminum pole, which is called the boom, fractured my spine, fell on the deck, and then I went inside the boat. I was cleaning up everything. After 30 minutes, I realized that I couldn't stand. And that's when I sent a message to the race organizers. I said, rolled, dismasted, severe back injury, cannot get up. And that started the biggest search and rescue effort of that decade. So that's what happened with me in the race.
So I said, this is something, unbelievable rather, floating in a dismasted boat, injured, without any means of communication, alone, and in the midst of a raging storm. Did you ever think of dying? This is what, hell and back. Did you ever think, did there ever thought ever come to your mind, will I survive this ordeal?
No, I knew that I was going to survive. And like I said, the Navy has put me through enough exceptional circumstances, exceptional training to make this look very normal. Like I said before, one day in the Naval Academy was far more difficult than lying in a boat in the middle of nowhere with fractured spine in the middle of a storm. I was very confident that I would be rescued. It was just a matter of staying alive till rescue came. Didn't know if it would come in 3 days or 5 or 10 days, but my job at that time was just to stay alive, and that's what I did.
So how did you keep yourself motivated? Just lying down on a bunk alone with the storm raging all around you and not knowing where you were floating away.
Well, one thing that I've learned from all my sailing is that the first thing that you need to do in such circumstance is to accept the present. I had to accept the fact that the race was over for me. I had to accept the fact that I was going to lose my boat. I had to accept the fact that I was previously injured and it would take time for people to find me and rescue me. And once I had accepted this, I could, move ahead and do the rest of the things. Obviously, it was a very stressful time. I won't deny that. There was a lot of anxiety. But when there is anxiety or when there is stress, I focus on my breathing. I chant, sometimes I chant Om, sometimes I chant meaningless sounds, and that really helps me de-stress and get me back into the present. So that's something that I continuously did. Another trick that I apply is I always start imagining a future for myself and figure out how to get there. So lying in the boat with a broken spine, I was already planning my next race, what boat to buy, what sort of team to have, what sort of preparations to do, what were the mistakes that I made in this one. And I was already, making a future for myself, and I was planning how to get there. And then a thought struck me: what if I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life? And quickly, I found an answer for that. And I was like, well, that's not a big problem, because now I can think of competing in the Paralympics. So, well, I had a lot of things to do at that time. In addition to all these important things, there were some mundane things like making a briefing for the rescuers who would come. I had to tell them that there were knives and there were tools spread on the floorboards. I had to tell them what is to be packed. Where is my passport? Where is my wallet, my phone? Where are the documents? What all needs to be packed and taken with me? I had to make a briefing for the doctor whenever I would meet him. And, I had to make a list of my medical conditions, that I could move my toes, that my back was not in a good shape. I did not know that the spine was fractured at that time, but I knew something was wrong. So, I had some sort of spasms in the spine. My sphincter and bladder control was normal. I did not hallucinate. I did not faint. I had a lot of hiccups. I had a lot of acidity issues. My chest was burning. Sleep was patchy. And that I'd been in my senses. So I made this huge briefing for that doctor whom I would eventually meet. And that's how I generally kept myself busy. And of course, I was focusing on a lot of positives. The biggest positive was that I would get to meet my wife much earlier than scheduled. So I could be a part of the pregnancy.
Oh, really, I mean, I have no words to describe that, What I would say is, the viewers would really love to see some pictures, and I would like to ask that, if you can show us some of your pictures and you could take us through them, So just wait for a few seconds, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Right. So when I tell people that I'm going to sail around the world, they really don't understand what exactly I'm trying to do. And this is, a picture that puts everything in perspective. I still remember this incident where I was driving a car which had tinted glasses, and I was stopped by a policeman. And my friend who was with me in the car, he gets out and he tells that traffic policeman, "You don't know what this guy is going to do." And the traffic policeman is like, "Kya karne wala hai?" And my friend is, he is going to sail around the world alone without stopping. He's going to be out at sea for 7-8 months alone. And the traffic policeman looks at me and he asks me, "Kyun ghar pe nahi baith sakta hai kya?" The fact is, it's not his fault, because we really don't understand how big the Earth is. The Pacific itself is, so big that you can put all the land into it, and you'll still have water left around it. So this is a route that I took sailing around the world. I started from Mumbai. I headed south. The moment I started, immediately there was, as soon as I started, there was a cyclone. I had to deal with that. Then I ran out of winds close to Kerala, crossed the equator, sailed through the trade winds, rounded Cape Lewin, sailed along the Great Australian Bight, got into the Pacific, rounded Cape Horn. That's when I hoisted the national flag in the boat, crossed the Atlantic. At Cape of Good Hope, I had one of the worst storms I could have ever imagined. I was back in the Indian Ocean, and there was a really bad super cyclone which was waiting for me called Haruna. Dodged that, headed towards India. Closer to the equator, I ran out of water. I had just 15 liters of water left for 15 days, but I somehow made it, and that's how I covered 40,000 kilometers without taking any canals, and I crossed the equator twice as the rules mandated, and I sailed south of all the 3 Great Capes. So that's how the first non-stop circumnavigation of India happened.
Next, yeah.
Well, yeah, this is this picture is. I really love this picture, because this is how I celebrated New Year's in 2012. It was 31st of December. I had this storm that started on Christmas, and it picked up. It started off as a mild storm, 30 knots gale, 4-5 meters waves, but it built into a huge storm. and this is what the sea looked like on New Year's Eve. It's like 1.3 billion people standing together and screaming at me, "Happy New Year!" And that whipped up this bad sea. But something very interesting happened here. I was so close to the international dateline that I believe I was the first Indian to welcome 2013. At 6 in the morning on the 1st of January, I crossed the dateline, because of which I had to shift my clock backwards, and I went back into the 31st of December 2012. And I believe I was the last Indian to bid farewell to 2012. And I don't think anybody can achieve that sort of a distinction. Being the first Indian to welcome 2013, and also being the last Indian to bid farewell to 2012.
That's stunning. Great. Next picture, please. Yeah.
But that's the most unforgettable moment of my life, when I walked up the steps of the gateway and the president himself was waiting there to receive me. I saluted him. I made a report saying that Sir, solo non-stop circumnavigation is complete. He saluted me back and he said, "On behalf of 1.3 billion people of India, I welcome you back on land." Now, after this, we had to give our speeches, and I'd not been speaking to anybody for the last 5 months, and suddenly you are giving a speech in front of the president himself. I used that as an opportunity to thank everybody who helped me in the voyage. I thank the boat builder who built a fantastic boat. But finally, when I had to finish my speech, I did not know what to say. So I just turned towards the president and I asked him, "Sir, can I go for one more round, please?" And he started laughing. In fact, everybody started laughing, but I was serious. And that's how GGR 2018 happened properly.
Wow. Yeah. This is...
Yeah, that's a fun picture. Amul made this ad when I came back, and I believe Amul dressed up the Amul girl as a mermaid, and she was trying to seduce me with buttered toast. But as you can see, I was a very smart naval officer who picked up that buttered toast, refused to be seduced, and continued on the voyage. What the Amul girl said is, "Shabash, Abhilasha puri hui," but more importantly, she said the best is yet to come. Probably she was also talking about the Golden Globe race of 2018.
Amazing. This is something great. And Amul was able to foresee your race in 2018. Awesome. Next picture, please.
Yeah, that's Robin Knox Johnston, Sir Robin Knox Johnston. He was the first man to sail around the world alone, non-stop. Took 312 days. He sailed around the world in a William Aitken's Eric 32 boat. She was called Suhaili. She was built in India. And I went to the race with an exact replica of his boat. So Robin, he came, when he sailed in Falmouth on the Suhaili, he came on board to check out this little boat from India. Second boat, the sister ship to Suhaili. He came inside, he signed my logbook, he sang a song in Hindi, Zindabad, Zindabad, and did all those things. And we were leaving the boat when a photographer asked us to stop, and he took this picture. Now that's where Robin asked me, "Abhilash, how long do you think you're going to take to finish your circumnavigation?" Now I know that Robin had finished it in 312 days. So I told Robin, "Sir, it will take 311 days. So Robin looks at me. 311 is one less than Robin. So, I was already thinking of beating his record. So he looked at me and he said, "You're young and ambitious." I told Robin, "Sir, you are old and jealous." So Robin was a bit taken aback. He caught my collar like this and he says, "I am a captain in my Navy." He's an honorary captain in the Royal Navy, so that's what he said. "I'm a captain in my Navy." I said, "Sir, I'm a commander. You outrank me. No problem. I'll take 313 days. Don't worry." So that was a little chat we had here.
What a story, really amazing.
Yeah. Every time after that, I would go on stage Robin would, hold my collar and remind me that I could not talk about him. I spoke about this incident in the Royal Cornwall Yacht Club, and he really had to hide his face somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, this picture is another interesting story. It's related to Robin again. In 1968, when Robin was going for his non-stop circumnavigation, a day before he was supposed to start, he went into a pub and, like a true sailor, got drunk. The pub's name was the Chain Locker in Falmouth, and he got drunk and he was leaving when he saw a barometer on the wall of the pub, and he decided to, let's say, borrow it without telling anybody. Uh, he took the barometer because he didn't have one, sailed around the world with it. 50 years later, in a big ceremony, 50 years later, okay, in a big ceremony, he returned that barometer to the chain locker. The same evening, it was stolen again. And the staff was running left, right, and center, trying to figure out where the barometer was or where did it disappear. Turns out that it was borrowed again by someone who was going around the world. And well, I had left Falmouth and I was about to, I'd left Falmouth and I was out of the territorial waters of UK. I was in the waters of France when I took a picture of this barometer and posted it for everybody's benefit to clear any confusion about its whereabouts.
What a story. So this is you who borrowed. You still have this barometer, or is it still borrowed, or is returned?
It's lost at sea. I lost
Lost
it
at
along with.
sea. That's where it belonged. Great.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Davy Jones locker.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is my wife and our elder boy, Vedant. Um, they came to see me off in France and came with this beautiful flag, which I hoisted on the boat. And trust me, anybody who would come would ask me, which country's flag is that? I would say India. And they're like, do Indians even sail? And I was like, I felt as if I was a Jamaican luge team going for the Winter Olympics in Canada. That's how out of place I felt. But I did have a lot of support, and a lot of French people supported me. The Dutch supported me. A lot of managers from other teams supported me. It was a really great moment. I really felt proud to fly this flag in the boat.
Such a proud moment. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was. I was crossing the Canaries Gate. This was just 10 days into sailing, crossing 10th, and I had to do a little interview with the race organizers. On the right side, you can see Don McIntyre. He's the race organizer. He did a little bit of a small interview. I'd written some letters, which I passed over to him. Now, letter writing is allowed. I can write letters and give it to him. Did that. And I also had carried the keys to the house where I was staying in Le Sable d'Olonne. I had to give those keys also to him, and he promised to return it. I don't know what happened to the keys, but I was fined some 300 euros for replacing the lock. It was a couple of days after this that I met a ship called BW Lilac, and there was a very interesting story to this. This ship had an Indian watchkeeper, and I don't have a GPS, but I can always call a ship and ask them for my position. So I asked the ship, can you give me my position? And they're like, this is your GPS position. And he asked me, why don't you have a GPS? I said, I'm doing this race in which I can't have a GPS. He asked me, how many people on the boat? I said, I'm alone. So he asked me, are you European? I said, no, I'm Indian. So this guy says, well, if you're Indian, do you by any chance know this guy called Abhilash Tomy who sails around the world alone? And I was like, that's me in this boat. It is Abhilash Tomy who's sailing this boat. And he was so thrilled. He said something, and suddenly I was like, I caught a hint of accent. I asked him, Malayali ano? are you from Kerala? And he's like, yes, sir, I'm Martin Marcos from Kerala. And we had a long chat. And till date, this happened in 2018. Till date, we are friends. We catch up whenever he's back in India. Not physically, of course, but we've been in touch for a long time.
Meeting a fellow Indian on the high seas who did not recognize you, but he knew your name. What a story, yeah? Really amazing.
Yeah.
This is something, picture, yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very heartbreaking. I had built this boat with a lot of love and effort. And, the sea showed me my place within hours. It didn't take too long. The boat is completely dismasted. As you can see, the masts are completely gone. Right behind, you can see in the stern of the boat, you can see that stub. The wind generator used to be there. All the blades completely broken and gone. You can also probably see a smaller stub, which is my autopilot, and that was also the autopilot survived, but the vane did not. The boat was a total mess. And this picture is shot from Osiris, which was a French fisheries patrol boat. These guys were patrolling in that area, luckily. And they were diverted by the Australian MRCC to come and pick me up. They came close, launched this red Gemini with 3 people. They came, they knocked on the boat, asked permission to come inside. I said, please come in. And I gave them the briefing that I had prepared. And that red thing that you see in their hand is a stretcher. So they put me on that stretcher and transferred me to the boat and got me out of that mess.
And then you were transferred back to that freighter, or was it the...
I was transferred to Osiris first. And interestingly, this was the last voyage of Osiris. After that, it was going into the junkyard. Sorry. Osiris, by the way, is the Egyptian god of life, death, and afterlife. So I was rescued by the Egyptian god of life, death, and afterlife. I was taken to an island called Amsterdam Island. I was there for 3.5 days. The Indian Navy dispatched a ship to pick me up. The Australian Navy also dispatched a ship to pick me up. But I hitched a ride on the Indian naval ship. I came to India after 17 days of the accident. And it was after 17 days that I got proper medical facilities. I had an MRI scan in Visakhapatnam, which revealed 4 spine fractures. The next day I was put in an aircraft and sent to Delhi. Day after that, I was operated upon and they inserted 2 titanium rods with 8 screws to hold my spine in place. Well, that's what made 2018 so interesting for me.
Yeah. There was a story that you actually did not allow yourself to be stretchered to the Indian Navy ship, or was it at the Amsterdam Island that you actually walked across the gangplank?
That was when the ship was back in India. So when I was picked up from the boat, I was in a stretcher. When I was put on Osiris, I was in a stretcher. From Osiris to Amsterdam Island was in a stretcher. From Amsterdam Island to the Indian Navy ship was also in a stretcher, which was inside a helicopter. So there were too many stretchers, and I was like, I got some time to practice walking. And I decided that somehow I have to walk out of the ship, and I wanted to salute the commanding officer as well, stand on my feet and salute him. And you always salute when you are entering or leaving a ship. So I wanted to do that. Now, there is a story that happened in the background. The commanding officer of the ship, Satpura, when he set sail to pick me up, got a very sad news. His father had just passed away. And the Navy gave him options. He could come back and go and be at the last rites of his father, or he could sail to Mauritius, fly back from Mauritius, and somebody else would sail the ship to pick me up. So he was given all these options, and he refused to leave the ship. And he decided that as a naval officer, his only duty and responsibility was to come and pick me up. That's, that was Captain Alok Anand. He did that because he was a naval officer. He picked me up, and while we were sailing back to Visakhapatnam, I started taking baby steps. I started walking a bit with 2-3 people around me, just in case I fall. And finally, when the ship reached Visakhapatnam, I was able to walk out of the gangway. And before that, I saluted when I left the gangway, and I also saluted the CEO of the ship. Now, looking back, it was all very stupid because if you have spine fractures, you just shouldn't stand up. Later, the doctors told me that I was very, very lucky, because if I fell another time, the spinal cord would have snapped. And if that had happened, you know what it entails. Both legs would have been paralyzed.
Sorry. I still remember, do you remember how you walked out of the hospital and we went in for a cup of your favorite coffee at Starbucks? So this was, and I was amazed that you actually come out of the hospital without permission. And
You talking confidential things.
But you had your cup of coffee at Starbucks. That is what was something so
Yeah,
important.
I'm having my favorite cup of coffee right now. I had to have a cup of coffee then.
So it's
So,
really,
yeah,
sorry.
immediately after the surgery, my legs were like violin strings. There was no muscle left. Uh, my HP count was down to 7, which was half of normal. If I brushed my teeth in the morning, it was like doing 1 hour of workout in the gym. The heart rate would be at 160. All parameters would go for a toss. So under these circumstances, I used to practice walking. I used to walk 2 minutes, 3 minutes without support. And I was walking from the second day of the surgery. One fine day, my brother and my brother flew down from Australia. We hatched a plan to go and visit a physiotherapist. And we took permissions from the doctor, and they said, no problem, you can go and meet him. So I got into a cab and went and met a physiotherapist in Delhi. And on the way, we had some coffee as well.
And we also had that coffee when you were, well, it's secret. So there are some, fabulous questions from our viewers. There's a question from Rajiv Das, which you've already kind of answered during showcasing the picture. Did your boat capsize at any point on your voyage? So that's what he
It did.
did.
That's how the entire accident happened, and the mast broke and all that.
And then there's a question from Sanjay Agarwal. He says, Commander, you're a sailor and an aviator. Looking back or maybe introspecting, what would be your first love, sailing or flying?
It's always my wife.
That's the third one, always a wife. Is that an intelligent answer? Because you're alive?
Yeah.
So that's a good one. I understand that. And by the way,
Yes, sailing and flying are very different. Flying is all about procedures and safety. For me, sailing becomes a spiritual experience. And I can say that one has contributed to the other. Flying has helped my sailing, sailing has helped my flying. The aerodynamics I've learned in flying, I apply them in sailing. The uncertainties that I see in sailing, I use them in flying. So it's really fed each other. I can't say one is better than the other, but yes, given a choice, I will prefer sailing because it lasts longer.
okay, so got it. So there's a question from one of the viewers, what next? And then the viewer is saying is that how are you training yourself for it, both physically, considering you've had a spine injury, and mentally? So like what next? What's your next dream?
My next plan is to go back to hell. I'm planning to go back to the next Golden Globe race, which will be in 2022. It is the 75th year of our independence, and I want to fly our flag around the world. That's my plan. How am I preparing for it mentally? I don't need to, because, like I said, the fact that I want to do it is good enough. If you want to do it, you don't need any more training. Everything else will adapt and things will fall in place as far as the mind is concerned. Physically, yes, I've had a big surgery. 5 bones have fused. My backbone will not twist and torsion at that place. But I have an advantage. I will not have a slip disc. Titanium will make sure that the bone will not break again. So I do have a few positives. I also need to mention that I had my surgery in October 2018. I was given 2 months to recuperate. At the end of 2 months, I joined back duty. I was given another 6 months of light duties, right? Just office work. But at the end of those 6 months, in the middle of 2019, I was declared fit by the Navy to get back into a cockpit, to go flying and to go sailing. And that is what I did. 2019, September, to mark the first anniversary of my accident, I did 50 kilometers of kayaking. My entire body was aching except that operated part. And I thought, perhaps it would be a good idea to replace all my bones with titanium. It might not hurt if I did that. Before I quit the Navy, I flew. I got into a cockpit. I actually flew a sortie. And getting into a cockpit is not easy because you have to do certain drills before that. And there is an underwater escape drill, which you have to do in a facility in Cochin. They put you in a dummy aircraft, blindfolded, make you strap up in the cockpit. They drop this entire dummy aircraft underwater, and you have to count till 5, right? The aircraft has to go so much underwater. You have to count till 5, wait. Blindfolded, you have to unbuckle yourself, get up, get out of your seat in the cockpit, feel your way along the side of the aircraft, look for that emergency exit window, open it, and make an escape. And you have to do it from the pilot seat, you have to do it from the co-pilot seat, and just once is not good enough. They make you do it 5 or 6 times. Once this is over, there is the helicopter winching drill, and that's like another story. They produce a storm in the pool with a lot of fans, and waves are created, and you have to wear your May vest inflated. You are fully dressed in your flying overalls, boots, gloves, and all that, and then you swim. And trust me, it's very difficult. You have to swim one full chakkar of the swimming pool, and then you reach that point where a harness comes down, and then you have to wear the harness and get pulled up into a simulated helicopter. I've done that drill, and yes, so physically, I think I'm ready already.
Oh, stunning. That explains it all. So we're almost at the end of a session. If I were to say that you were to choose 3 words that best described you, what would they be? Not titanium, apart from titanium, yeah. 3 words that will best describe you. Whatever comes to your mind, something.
I think perseverance, agility, and definitely a lot of humor.
Yeah. Amazing. This is something amazing, outstanding. I mean, before we really end this amazing, outstanding, I'm running out of words to this live chat that we have on our YouTube channel. There's one last question which has come in brilliantly. Would you encourage others to do something adventurous as this? Or do you think that it can be done only by a few people like you? And what it is that you need to be motivated for such an adventure?
I can't give a very straightforward answer to this, but I believe everybody should get into some form of adventure. It can be trekking, it can be sea swimming, it can be sailing. There are a lot of opportunities, but everybody should get into adventure, because if you do that, your daily life will become much easier. You will not be bothered by small inconveniences of life. So yes, adventure is something that I will advocate for everybody. As far as something like this is concerned, a non-stop circumnavigation, I would definitely want a lot of people to do that. But at the same time, one must remember that I did not take a boat one fine day and attempt a circumnavigation. There are many years of preparation that goes into it. I have done, a medical course where I'm taught how to stitch myself up if there is a gash. I can insert a catheter into myself. I can treat a lot of common illnesses, and that's one part of the training. I've been trained in global maritime distress and safety, search and rescue procedures, in engineering, in electronics, electrical, carpentry work, oceanography, meteorology, media editing. And it's not, we're not talking about classroom stuff. We're talking about classroom plus real world experiences. So, yes, I've had a lot of training. If somebody wants to do high adventure like this, you must weigh your risk. You must be fully prepared. And if you want to do it, yes, you should definitely do it. But don't be irresponsible. Don't just take a boat and or steal a boat. Definitely don't steal a boat.
You can steal the barometer, or rather borrow it, but don't steal a boat.
Not mine.
And prepare for it. That's really amazing, And we're at the end of the show. I think both of us really want it to go on and on. I'm sure you're really tired speaking. What was so great about it that, we were able to understand in some small way what you've gone through, the way you shared with your heart, your content on what you achieved, not just for yourself, but as a proud Indian. And all of us as proud Indians really salute you to what you've done, what you've achieved, and what you stand for. And you want to encourage others to be as adventurous. So thank you so much for your insightful and inspiring talk. Be a pleasure someday soon to have you again with us, sir. Thank you so much, Abhilash.